Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, where we're going to be discussing whether kit days, keeping in touch days, are a wasted opportunity or a retention power tool with the brilliant Move Through founder, Zoe Deuce. So, as a former product director at Time Inc. and Amazon, Zoe brings a project management mindset to maternity leave and beyond. And in maternity leave plan, it's already being used by some incredible organisations, including Mars, the NHS, Boots and Costa. She works with both companies and individuals to keep talented women in the leadership pipeline, which is something we all need to know about. And today she's going to show us exactly how kit days can become a strategic retention tool rather than a missed opportunity. So welcome, Zoe.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks so much. So if anybody would like to share about their keeping in touch days today, please do so in the comments below. So thank you, everybody. Now, before we get started, Zoe, I just thought, for anybody who doesn't know what a kit day is, a keeping in touch day, just to give a little bit of an intro on that, because not everybody does if they haven't had somebody go on maternity leave before. But basically, it's a provision in the UK which allows employees on stat maternity, adoption or additional pat leave to work for their employer up to 10 days without losing their pay or being treated like they've ended their maternity leave. So they're voluntary, they can be any type of work, and employees are entitled to be paid for any work done as well. So that's the kind of nitty gritty of a keeping in touch day. But Zoe, I would love to know, what should a kit day actually look like? What is best practice?
So I think a kit day should really have two focuses. And a lot of people know about the first one, which is immersing yourself back into the company. So this is things like, having catch-ups with your manager, catching up on team news if people, have left, if new people have come in, meeting them, training up on new systems or processes, all of those sorts of things. And yeah, most people do know about this side of things. But a secondary focus, which I think a lot of people don't think of or don't think, would count as part of their kit day, is to make sure that everything is set up at home with your childcare and everything like that. It's really good to do a kit day in line with things like, your first settling in day at nursery, or, if you're having a childminder, to have like a trial day with the childminder on the kit day. Or even if you're having grandparents support childcare while you're back at work, have them come in on a kit day so that you can basically practice it and trial it out. Another really good one is having a babysitter come in that you're thinking about using if you're you'll know this, Amy. The first 6 months when your children go into childcare, they're just ill all the time. So it's really good to have a backup babysitter that can come in on the days where, they've just got a bit of a sniff. It's nothing serious. If you can practice with one before you go back to work, that's another great person that you've got set up that you can call in last minute. You don't have to explain everything from the start. A lot of mums, it's really sad, but they come to me in the first few weeks back and they, are finding it really difficult. And often it's their first day back at work, it's their child's first day at nursery. They've never spent that long apart before. If they're back in the office, it's the longest in distance that they've been apart. Plus going back to work, having all of the updates around you, feeling like you need to catch up with everything. And obviously it's just so much, isn't it, to take on and to deal with in one day. I think as much as you can practice beforehand, both with, getting back up to speed with the company, but also all the home side of things, that will just really alleviate a lot of the anxiety when you do go back. And you'll just be able to feel much more comfortable.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Zoe. I don't think I had thought of it like that before, but actually doing it as a practice run for all of those logistical things that come into play. Because like you say, if it's your first day back to work, it's your child's first day in nursery, you've got all these other things to think about. Actually, if you've had a few practices before that, kit days are a really good opportunity for that, aren't they? So that's a really good point. What would you say for when you get to the kit day in terms of what it should look like when you get there? So we've sort of done the logistical side of things, sort of the organisational bits, but what about when it gets there? Is there anything particular that mums should be thinking about or organisations should be thinking about in terms of making the most out of those days?
Yeah, so I would say a really key thing to have is a joint plan. So for the employee and the manager to have a joint plan that they're both referring to. And, I love to do the maternity leave plan, and you can use that. But if you haven't done that, since you've been going off, you can still use that from your kit days and for the first 3 months back. To have like a column for the employee and a column for the manager so that you both know what each other are doing, you both know what to update each other on. It also just means that you don't have to be sort of checking in so much and asking permission so much, because there's a lot of self-directed work that the employee can do on kit days. So, like I said, things like catching up with company news or, team restructures. Often it's training on new processes or systems that have come in. And you don't always need to be, updating your manager on, if you want to spend a couple of hours immersing yourself in a new system or a new tool that the company are using, that's a great way to spend your kit day. And if that is on a plan, then your manager knows you're doing that. You can do a little mini agenda for each kit day that you're planning to take. Then your manager knows when to slot in as well. And also feel free to put those home care and childcare things on there as well, because I don't think it's a bad thing for your manager or your employee or employer to know all the things that you are putting in place at home to ensure that you can come back ready and productive. It's only going to make you look more dedicated. I don't think before children any of us realise what it takes to get into work every day, and now we know that it's like a military operation. And I think if I knew that before I had children and I was a manager, I'd have been like, oh, there's no doubt in my mind that you want to be here. You've done all of this before 8 a.m. You must really want to be here. You must love your job. You must be so committed. So I don't think there's any harm in putting all of that stuff into your plan as well, so that your manager can see just what is going into you coming back.
I think that's a really good point. We always talk about how transparency is the key to trust here. So the more you can be transparent with how it's going to look for you when you do return. So, okay, even just trying out some of those different start times or different end times and what that looks like for you, but also for the organisation. Does that fit well with them? And things like how much you're going into the office and all of those sort of niggly things that you might not have thought about before having kids, but actually, you need to test all of that out before you do go back into the office. So transparency is really key there. So would you say you would download your mat leave plan, put all your plans in for yourself, and then share that with your manager? Is that how you would see that would be a good way to work that?
It's a great place for you to brain dump everything that you want to practice, everything that you want to discuss with them. Ideally, the whole point of a joint plan and, for effective kit days is that when you come back, there are no surprises on either end. So if you're the employee and you're coming back, to like people that you don't even know are in your team, new processes, stuff has changed in the company, they've had a rebrand, or I've spoken to loads of people, they've got new managers when they go back and they had no idea. Like it is wild out there. But if you can come back and you know what you're coming back into, that home is, sorted as much as possible, you're going to be so much more confident. If your manager is also, if you've already had conversations about during your kit days, you're using those to have conversations about, what your new routine is going to look like, any pinch points with childcare. So, you have to leave at a certain time or you can't get into meetings until a certain time, what those first 3 months are going to look like when you come back, how you're going to hand over projects and things. That's also going to be great for your manager. It's jarring for a manager as well if you come back and you're like, I only want to work 3 days a week. I only want to do this part of my role now. I want to change this bit. And, you haven't had any discussions beforehand. Basically, neither of you wants to be on the back foot or caught off guard. If you can come back and there are no surprises, that would be a sign of real successful use of your kit days. It doesn't have to be 100% confirmed, what your new role is, or you don't have to be 100% trained up on the new systems, but it's not going to be the first time you've spoken about it, or it's not going to be the first time you've heard about anything. I think that's a really good sign if there are no surprises.
Then you can hit the ground running, right? It's being able to get in as best you can and take control of as much as you can. How soon would you say to use the kit days? Because I know you can use it in any way at any time that you want to. When would be a good point in your opinion?
I tend to see most people, and when I work with most people, it's the last 3 months. Because then they can practice those, childcare things at home. So they can start to have settling days with whatever your childcare provider is. Also, the feeding might be a bit more predictable and things like that. So I think those last 3 months are good. I don't think it hurts to have, 1 or 2 at the 6 month mark, just to probably update yourself on the company if there's been any big changes. But I would say the majority, that last 3 months of whenever you are going back, would be really the best time to use it. I think then you can just practice the most, right? So I suppose this is a little bit off tangent, but it is related. You don't, a lot of companies you can take up to 10 days. But if you are in an office-based job, it's a bit different if you're, a nurse or a teacher or something like that. But most office-based jobs, you don't have to do a whole day for it to count as a kit day and get paid for a kit day. But what I would really recommend is that you do it either in the morning when then you can practice dropping them at nursery for their settling in day, doing the commute, and even if it's back to your desk, just knowing how long all those things take, or likewise do it in the other way around where you need to leave by the time that you think you need to leave to get your child and all of that sort of stuff. I know it sounds silly, but even knowing how long the nursery drop off takes. At the beginning I was like, okay, well that'll be 5 minutes and then I jump on the train, and then you get there and it's 20 minutes because they're crying or because they want to, give the key worker wants to give you an update, and 5 minutes to try and get your buggy out of the buggy park and all of those sorts of things, So even just having a little practice of everything so that you know what time you can feasibly get to your desk in the morning, how long everything's going to take.
Is it on the mums to arrange all of these things, or should it be from the organisation as well? How does that work?
So I think this is where a lot can sort of go wrong, because a lot of the time the mum has, it's their first child a lot of the time, or even if it's their second, they haven't had much guidance before. But then from the manager's point of view, they sort of don't want to disturb the employee. I definitely made the mistake of when I had my son, and the first time mum thinking, oh, well, my manager's dealt with loads of people going off, so they'll know more than me. And, they definitely did not. So I would say, again, this is where that plan comes in really handy, because you can just keep open communications on it. It probably should be up to the employee when they want to get in touch to do a kit day. Something the manager can do on their side is to, as soon as their employee goes off on leave, is to just start a Google Doc or notes, whatever they want to do. And every time that there is an update, so, if somebody's left the team or if there's something going on within the company or a new process or something, they can just jot all of those changes down on this doc, so they don't have to keep forwarding stuff on. That is just so annoying. But then when they do have a catch up with the employee, they can remember everything that's changed. It's one of those things when you meet someone, isn't it, where they say, "Oh, what's new?" and you're not nothing. Everything's the same as it was, and then you realise afterwards actually quite a lot of stuff has changed. So that's a really easy thing for the manager to do, so that they can fully update the employee. I would say it's up to the employee to get in touch to arrange the kit days, but that the manager shouldn't shy away from, speaking to the employee, at reasonable points. In the maternity leave plan, I actually say before you go off, for you to both agree what you want to be contacted about and how you want to be contacted. And that sounds such a small thing, but I have to unpick such a lot of problems because that hasn't happened, because there's been a vacancy come up within the team and the employee hasn't been told about it while they're off, when actually they would have liked to have gone for that promotion. That could have been so easily avoided if they'd had that conversation before about what they want to be contacted about, how they want to be contacted, things like that. So, yeah, it's definitely on both sides. I think the manager also thinks, they don't have to manage that person for a year if they're off. And there is actually quite a bit for them to do still. So it's definitely worth, if you haven't already, having a look at that maternity leave plan, just to make sure you're both doing what you're meant to be doing at the right times.
It's a really another interesting point, because the person goes off on mat leave, you think, oh, I'm not having to worry about those. But actually, it is your responsibility as their manager to really keep them in the loop, give them that sense of belonging and welcome them when they return, and keeping these guidelines before you go off, so you know what you do want to be contacted about, and all of those things is really key. So I think there is that responsibility from a manager to make sure that they are doing everything they can to welcome you back in when the time comes, because we all know that actually that return to work after pregnancy can be a really daunting time. Making them so welcome is a really good thing. On the organisation side of things then, if they don't do kit days well, or they're not thinking about how to support their employees, their team members when they go on mat leave effectively, what are they losing out on? What are the risks of ignoring it basically and doing it wrong?
Just the things that we hear about every day basically. So I think a lot of grievances from the employee that they have not been kept in mind for things like opportunities. They probably haven't had those conversations about what it's going to look like when they come back and what that first 3 months is going to look like. That is such a key period. So I would say the whole period is really important in terms of retention, from when the person announces their pregnancy through to when they come back. But that first 3 months when someone comes back, that is make or break. So, and it is on the employee as well to set up as much as they can before that 3 months, practice things as much as they can before that 3 months, so that that's not, you're not a deer in headlights in those first 3 months back. But really for the manager to make sure that they're coming back into a supportive environment. Maybe the projects are handed back gradually. Maybe we do need to have a conversation about what time you're leaving every day, or if you do want to adjust your hours slightly. A really good way to actually look at some of these things as well, and this could be self-directed while you're off, is to look at your annual review during your time on maternity leave and just update yourself with what your company, what your personal goals are, what your team goals are, and make sure that all of those sorts of things are still relevant. And then in that first 3 months back, looking at that with your manager, even if it's not annual review time, because how maternity leaves fall sometimes a bit out of line with that, but that's a really good thing to come back, and if they are out of date, to do a revision on that annual review. Again, just to make sure that you're lined up on what is expected. It's awful, isn't it? I don't even know why I'm saying it, but there's that saying, what you avoid creates a void. And it is just like, the more you don't say things, the more it's going to become an issue. And that is usually when I'm hired to try and unpick stuff that could have just been avoided just with a very simple conversation, because expectations have not been aligned.
It's very easy, isn't it, I think, when you do go off on mat leave, that, okay, I'm not having to think about that for a year, so I'm going to sort of bury my head in the sand in that sense, but also just focus and prioritise the task at hand, which is raising your newborn baby. But then, like you say, when it comes back to going back to work and returning, that then can feel like a really huge shift if you haven't thought about it in the last year, which I know lots of people, they want to make sure that they have that time, but just a few moments of reflection and thinking about when they go in, that they're a little bit more intentional, will, I guess, help to have an easier, more supportive return back. So from the organisation's point of view, you said the first 3 months is a really key piece for retention. Is there anything else that the organisations need to be thinking about when they have somebody go on their maternity leave? What other things should they be thinking about?
I would say communication is the main piece, to be honest. And I do think having the joint plan will really, really help with that. And I get just not shying away from some of those proactive conversations, because just thinking as you were talking there, how much somebody changes when they're on maternity leave. And I felt it myself, you probably did. But then when you come back, your manager can't read your mind. They don't really know that you've changed. They don't know everything that's gone on behind the scenes to you, mentally, physically, spiritually, all these things. So I actually did a post the other day, and it was like, your manager can't read your mind. So it is on the employee to share that and say that I actually want to work a bit differently now I'm back. You don't have to go in exactly how you were pre-children, and it's very hard to do that. There will be people that want to do that, and there'll be people that want to, keep climbing, that's fine. But if you do want to adjust slightly, even temporarily, that is also fine. And it's within everyone's rights to request things like flexible working and to share what's going on. But I guess it's on the managers and the employers to keep an open mind to things like that, and think if they really do want to keep often the most experienced people in the team, the people that can handle the big projects, people that can help mentor the more junior members of staff, that they do need to be understanding of these things and support them through this time.
It is all really around retention, isn't it? Because we know that, we see it all the time, that actually if they're not being supported back, then it's either that they will leave or they will shy away from all of the things that they used to do before, because actually they're not being supported in that way. So thanks so much, Zoe. Is there anything else that women can do to, I think we've answered this a lot in terms of just being very open around the communication piece, sort of working together with the organisation to make sure that they're being transparent too about what's happened on both sides. Is there anything else that a woman could do if they feel like actually their kit days are not being taken seriously, or if their return to work isn't being taken seriously?
So I would say the self-directed work is a really good way to just make sure that you're doing everything you can on your side. So obviously we've spoken about setting things back up at home, but looking at your annual review, training yourself up on any new systems, reaching out to team members, researching if there's family ERG or family support within the company. I mean, hopefully you'll be getting support from your manager on all these things, but these are also things that you can be doing on your own, just to make sure that when you do come back, you are in a good place.
Now, I can see throughout the whole conversation, Zoe, I feel like you've led with very much a project management mindset when it comes to mat leave, and I'm sure that's clear in your maternity leave plan that you've spoken about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, where they can find that, and also where we can find you if they want to know even more about how to help people back to maternity leave?
Project management definitely is at the heart of what I do. That's my previous experience in corporate, and for the last 3 years I've been bringing it to my work supporting professional parents and the companies that I work with. It's essentially just managing lots of different things at any one time, and what I've kind of mentioned here as well, having a really detailed plan, but then having a couple of backup options that you can swap in and out at short notice, because like we all know those curveballs come when you're a working parent. That is definitely the practical hands-on approach that I bring to my work. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always here. I would love to chat to more of you.
So thank you so much, Zoe. I think you've given us a really nice, tangible way to treat kit days, because it is something that you have to be quite proactive about. It's something that you have to be very transparent about and really clear in communication. And I think your mat leave plan really gives a nice tool for that to help start the conversation. So download that if you haven't already. And thank you for your guidance and tips today. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.